my hey, I got something to say. Woo-hoo! All right, I just have to get it over with. If you are in the Philly area, come on, go Phillies! Did pause for a second. I think I was screaming too loud about the Phillies. Isn't that funny? It went, we are pausing for a moment. I do get really excited. I just get excited to see people come together about anything, right? It just is so much fun. And now I am bringing in a friend of mine from the Heart of Bliss Yoga. Where have I met Angela? Angela, you did it, baby!
Go Phillies!
I know, I was saying. And it paused. I was screaming so loud. I was like, oh my God, what just happened? Wait, are you in a yoga studio?
Do I own a yoga studio? No.
No, are you in a yoga studio?
I am in a space in my house that I created when I broadcast my Zoom yoga classes on Thursday mornings. So that's what this space is.
Ooh. So you do own a yoga studio.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get into that. But let me tell them a little bit about you.
Oh.
Angela, can I tell them a little about you, just a little bit?
Absolutely.
Angela is a registered yoga teacher and certified yoga therapist. Of course. She loves working closely with those who are experiencing the pressures of daily life. I don't know anybody like that, Angela. I don't know anyone. Before making yoga her sole focus, Angela was a 40-plus year veteran. I did not know that of the corporate world. Mm-hmm. We'll find out more. She knows too well the stress of what the world throws at us, like a ping pong. Being many things to many people can blind us to who we really are. That's so true. So true. Regaining that vision was a part of her journey home that she shares with us today. All right. So before we get into your one statement, Angela, please remind me, how did I meet you? Was it through NABO?
Sandy, first of all, you are a legend in the Philadelphia area. So I feel like I've known you probably all my life, just as a result of seeing you on television from time to time, with your fitness, the fitness industry. And so Norbo may have been when we formally met, but I feel like we've sort of been traveling in circles that have sort of touched on and off throughout the years. So
that's probably true. Yeah, you're right. Okay, but now it's coming back to me. You were helping me organizing something. I was speaking at one of the NABO events.
Yes.
And you were president at the time. That's it. You made me feel so warm and welcome. All right, so let's get into, it was fun. So let's get into the one statement that you wanted to tell women and men around the world. Yoga can be an amazing place to start the journey back home to your true self. Now, I do have a true confession. You ready for this? I am not a yogi. Like, I offered yoga in my studios, but I taught everything but yoga because I was born with hip dysplasia. So my hips are really tilted way, way far forward. Right. So when I started doing all the yoga, I had to modify 90% of it. And so it just didn't work for me. But then I thought, I bet you there's a lot of different types of yoga. So it wasn't until maybe when I sold my health clubs in 2019, I went to Kripalu yoga retreat for a week. And then I said, that's what I'm talking about, because it wasn't the traditional yoga. There were so many different, I was dancing, I was chanting, I was banging on drums.
and all the mindset stuff that I wanted from yoga
Yeah.
was there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad you did that. I
Oh,
am
because I'm like,
so,
wait a minute.
so glad.
Just because I was built this way, I can't be, left out of this amazing, beautiful thing. And for me, it was more about the mind-body connection. And I would recommend anyone to go there. So I want you to dive more into this because I didn't really understand it until I went away for a week
Mhm.
to find my yoga. But tell me why you believe you can find your true self through yoga.
You know, Sandy, first of all, I just want to say thanks for the opportunity to hang out with you this afternoon. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the fact that you provide this amazing platform for so many people. And I guess the reason I say that, the reason I really feel that yoga can be a path back home is that the more I work with my students and my private yoga therapy clients, the more I see how much the world sort of breaks us into little pieces. You know, we're born whole, we're born perfect. And as we
Mm.
go through life, as we go through this amazing experience called life, it sort of has a tendency to break us and fracture us into little pieces. And sometimes I hesitate to use the word fracture because for some people it means broken, but for me it
Yeah,
just
yeah.
means a separation from the whole. And the world has a tendency to do that to us because that's the world we live in. We're not monks living in caves. So let me tell you what I mean by that. So there's work, and work has a tendency to create a little facet or a fracture for us in our lives. And it doesn't matter whether you're a corporate person, an entrepreneur, if you're an individual who's out delivering mail or a court stenographer. We work, especially nowadays, in these hard driving, performance
Mm.
based environments that are spreadsheet related and graphs and hiring and firing and that learning arc that we're on with technology. And we're constantly in this problem solving mode in the jobs that we perform in this world.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that's lovely. But if you're not
Yeah.
really a hard driving kind of person,
Right.
you have to adapt. And that begins to take us away from our center. It begins to take us away from home. And so I'll give you a perfect example, Sandy. I think some of the people who might be listening might remember this. I don't know, maybe they don't. But I started my career in the 70s and 80s. And during that time, there were very few women in the corporate world. And we kind of wiggled our way in, and we wore little bow
Yeah.
ties on our button down Oxford shirts. We wore suits, and we started to use the language of our male counterparts, a lot of sports language, you know, hey, I'll touch base with you next week, those kinds of things. And that's just how we had to adapt. And for some of us, it was difficult. For others, it may have been extremely easy. But the work might take a little piece of our spirits, you know, each time we step foot into that environment. And then there's the family and friends facet, or that, you know, fracture, that piece of who
Mm.
we are. And that environment probably calls for maybe softer communication, maybe deeper listening, listening that's a little bit deeper because we're listening to people who occupy a place in our hearts. And while I've always loved my coworkers, they've never been they've never been family in my heart. So I can remember back in the day coming home from my corporate jobs, and my husband was working from home at the time, and I can remember coming in trying as hard as I could to make the transition on the car ride home. But I'd come in and I'd still be in work mode. And it would be, okay, let's go. We're going to have dinner on the table by 6 o'clock. And then we're going to do this. And then we're going to do that. And it was this sort of staccato, almost to-do list of things that had to happen that evening. And I can remember my husband Ron saying to me a couple of times, whoa, 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 let's put corporate Angela back in the cage. And it just, it's another part of us that is, it's a facet. And it's sort of like that work facet too. And then we get to that part of me, right? We're giving to family, we're giving to friends, we're giving to our corporations or our businesses if we happen to be entrepreneurs. And we get to that place of me and we ask that question, who am I? You know, am I corporate Angela? Am I yoga Angela? Who is this person that lives in this body? Who am I? And, you know, when we strip away all those other roles, that's really what's left. But because we live in the world that we live in today, it's busy, it's noisy, it's chaotic. Sometimes we just don't get quiet enough to really tap into that inner aspect of who we truly are. And so I think what begins to happen, and this is what I see with my students and my clients, and even some of my friends, Sandy, is that they come to this point in life. It could be because they're suddenly an empty nester, right?
Yeah.
Or they're retired. And for some reason, you know, they haven't been preparing for retirement. Or maybe they were suddenly retired, like happens to some people in life. It happens.
Yeah.
Maybe it's relationship changes, right? The death of a spouse or partner, divorce, maybe it's a marriage, or a relationship that maybe is no more. And we get to this place where we say, but who am I as a result of not being a wife or a husband or a BFF to somebody? And then the other time that I think is really big for people when they go inside and say, but who am I? Is the loss of parents. And many of my friends are in that process now. Thank goodness, my folks still happy and healthy, 87, 84 years old. Love you, Mimi and John. You're amazing. But when we lose our parents, that's also another time when we go inside and we say, I'm no longer, you know, the son or daughter of Bill and Mary or Mimi and John, or I'm me at this point. And I don't know how many of the viewers this afternoon can really relate, but geez, I know sometimes when I go home again, you know, at Thanksgiving or Christmas, I'm six again when I'm with my parents and my sibling. I just go, I revert back in my mind to being six. So it's not good or bad, it just is what it is. So we've got these big changes in life where we say, who am I? And I know that when that happens for some, we become lost. Some people even become depressed because their identity has been, or they feel that their identity has been taken away. So for me, that question of who am I, it occurred about 30 years ago. And it happened through yoga. And let me take you back in time, 30 years ago. I was celebrating my 10-year anniversary, married to my beloved. Ron is the breath in my body and the giggle in my laugh. He's just an amazing human being that I get the privilege of being married to. But around that 10-year mark where we were at a point where we were making some really big decisions in our marriage. We're talking about, do you have kids? Do you not have kids? Do you buy your house? Do you stay where you are? Do you move across the country to chase your career? What do we do here? And those were big choices. And the corporate jobs that I had at the time, Sandy, they were very unfulfilling. Don't get me wrong, I worked with some amazing people. I had some amazing bosses. I worked for some really great companies, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I wasn't feeling full. And I knew something was off in my corporate life, my job, my career. At the time, I was also wrapping up an MBA, and I had people asking me, what's next? I was like, I don't know. And then my friends were saying to me, what are you going to do with all your spare time? So, of course, I resorted to being corporate Angela. I made a list of all the things I was going to do in my spare time. I was going to take singing lessons. I was going to take art lessons. I was going to learn how to do yoga. I was going to learn how to do Pilates. The list was about this long. Out of all of those things, Sandy, the only thing I did was take a yoga class. Now think about this. 30 years ago, yoga was odd. You could not find a yoga studio on every corner.
No.
You couldn't go to your local YMCA and sign up for a yoga class. You had to really hunt for it. And it was really kind of circuitous the way this happened. I had it on my list, which proves the power of writing things down.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was on my list. And a friend of a friend who had a friend who had a cousin who had a friend was teaching yoga in the area. They didn't have a studio. They were teaching in the evening after work in a doctor's office that they were done with, doctor's hours for the day. We pushed all the chairs back against the wall, and then we had the waiting room to put our mats out and have a great time. And so I took the class. I rolled out my mat. Trust me, 30 years ago, it wasn't really easy to find yoga equipment either. So I roll out my mat, not knowing what to expect. And as soon as the yoga teacher started talking, I fell in love. And I knew I was home. And my yoga mat really is home for me. When I roll it out every day, and when I do my yoga poses, I usually do a couple of poses every day. I meditate each day, usually in the morning, just kind of start things off on a good note. As soon as my bottom hits that mat, I feel comfort. Yeah. I feel acceptance, even if it's only me accepting me.
Yeah.
I feel a
huge
release.
Yeah.
I feel nurtured. I feel that I belong. And in a world where so many of us don't know where we belong, on your yoga mat, you can feel that way. And I felt like I was home.
Yeah.
And
what a wonderful feeling.
It is.
What a wonderful
feeling. It is. And that's what we should feel when we go home. And I'm thinking, we're coming up on Thanksgiving and Christmas, big family, times of the year. For some, family is good feelings. For others, we're still working through it. But all of those things, comfort, acceptance, nurturance, belonging, it's the feeling of home, at least the feeling that I want to get when I go home. And it's certainly.
So Angela, let me ask you, because I'm getting a lot of questions coming in, which of course everybody wants that feeling. you know, and some people are saying they've tried yoga, it maybe wasn't for them, it could have been the class, it could have been the type. So let's back up a little bit for the question I'm getting the most, which is there are so many types of yoga. And you know as well as I do, some emphasize the fitness end of it,
Absolutely.
and some emphasize more of the spiritual and the mindset. So how can you find a yoga that fits you? Because I mean, it's like saying I'm going to go to work out. Well, there's a million workouts to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's such a great question. And just let me say, gosh, I honor all the people who have tried it and are asking that question now, because
Yeah.
there are a lot of different types of yoga. And my recommendation is so many yoga studios, yoga teachers, myself included, will have what they call a drop-in rate. So if you just want to drop in for a class, it's not going to cost you, you know, the cost of buying, a punch card or
Yeah.
those kinds of things. So you just drop in and you audition the class and you see if it's right for you. All teachers are different. I know that when I teach, I have always appreciated, as an adult learner, understanding why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so in my classes, there's always at the front end, there's yoga philosophy, because it's rich and it's deep. Yoga is 5,000 years old. And I always say anything that's been around that long, there must be something to it. So the idea of having a conversation, calling the studio and talking to the owner is also another really good idea as far as I'm concerned. Find out what kinds of classes they teach. Find out what kinds of fitness levels are appropriate for the different classes. If you're someone who has problems getting up and down off the floor, or maybe you're recovering from knee surgery, hip surgery, find out if they have a chair yoga class that you can plug into, or find out whether or not the teacher is adept at modifying for their students.
Yeah. You know, I'm so glad you said that, because I do love the fact that you can audition. You go in and you find what works for you, but just because you went to one class doesn't mean yoga's not for you.
Exactly.
True.
Exactly. Every teacher's personality is different. I like to use a lot of humor in my class. I always say, yoga is for laughing. I mean, we have these things called bodies that we inhabit. Some of our bodies are more cooperative than others as far as poses go. And trust me, the classes that I teach, they're not Instagram classes. That's not, people are not doing all kinds of really kind of crazy and wacky things. My yoga is very traditional. It's traditional yoga.
Yeah. Funny story. Everyone's convincing me, okay, you'll find the right yoga for you. You'll be able to open your hips. And at the time, so when I told you I was born with hip dysplasia, I didn't know that. I just know I didn't have a turnout until like I was in my 40s, and the doctor's like, well, but I didn't know that. So there was always like thinking that I would be eventually able to open my hips, but I couldn't. I cannot tell you how many yoga classes in New York City I got kicked out of from laughing.
Really?
Because I was laughing. I was having such a good time. And they did not want that. And I thought, but wait a minute, I'm having fun. And they would say, you're disturbing the class. And then years later, and I mean many years later, I found yoga classes that were accepting of my unique body and laughter. And I like to hear the fact that you said you put humor in your class.
I have to. You have to, right? You're falling over in some poses, or you're just not able to do a pose that you were able to do last week, and you're just laughing. It's the world gives us a lot to laugh about. So, and shakeoff
Well,
is
then I
another
could come into your
advantage of
class.
that. It releases all those amazing endorphins in our body when
Yeah.
we laugh. It's a good thing. It's a healthy thing.
So, Angela, they want to know a little bit more about you. So here you go. They want to know, how many times a week do you do yoga personally? And do you do any other fitness programs in addition to the yoga?
Me personally,
You
okay.
personally. They
I
want to get
do.
to know Angela.
I'm on my mat. I'm on my mat every day, and because it feels like home.
Like
I
home.
start out my day doing just a couple of poses. I'm not doing a half an hour's worth. Some mornings I struggle to do 15 minutes worth because I'm pressed for time. But I'll do a few movements, when I get
Okay.
out of bed in the morning, because at 66, my body hurts when I get out of bed. I'm stiff and I need to move into my
Thank
day.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
I need to move into my day with grace and ease. So a few poses just to kind of get the spine limbered up.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate information highway. So we've got to get that thing limbered up. And then I usually spend probably, usually no less than 10 minutes in the morning in meditation. And it just centers me. That's all.
Yeah.
And sometimes my meditation can be in silence. Sometimes I might be listening to some music. Other times I pray. It just all depends. And
Yeah.
so, as far as other fitness routines go, I do lift weights because it just makes me feel better about my body as it ages. Do I need to do that? Maybe not, because there are a lot of poses that build your strength. And
Yeah.
that's really the beautiful thing
Yeah.
about yoga. And it's the yin and the yang, or the yin and the yang of yoga. Is one part of yoga is flexibility and the other part is strength. And your body isn't healthy unless it has both.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So I told you the time would
I
fly. We got a
know.
few minutes. I know it's crazy. It's whacked. But let me get this one more question in before I ask about what you're up to. Somebody who's never done yoga. This is a gentleman that's asking. He is 48 and does a lot of fitness stuff, but never has done yoga. What would you suggest starting with? How many minutes? He wants to know how many minutes, what routine.
If you've, it's a good question and I appreciate it. Um, and this would be whether you're male or whether you're female and you've never done yoga before. You can certainly pop on to, gosh, the internet is, fabulous for going on and doing some simple, just Google beginner yoga classes. You can certainly do that. What that'll do is that will help you in the privacy of your home get accustomed to the language that's used in yoga. It's a little different.
Yeah.
You've got an instructor who's cueing you, and for you to know where to put your hand, what to do with your leg, etc., it becomes really helpful. And I would say that, doing maybe an online yoga class once a week or so, if you feel comfortable doing that. But maybe even better would be to find a class nearby that you can go to, because the thing about doing a class in person, even better than Zoom, is to actually go to a class and have the yoga teacher be able to help position you for
Yes.
comfort
Yes.
and alignment so that you don't
Yes.
get hurt. Because contrary
And the
to
community.
Mhm.
I love the
Being a
community of it.
part of community. I mean, when you walk in, it's kind of like the old Cheers show when Norm would walk into the bar and everybody would say, Norm! It's kind of fun to walk into the yoga class that you like to go to and have people know your name or have people
Yes,
greet you. It's a good
absolutely.
feeling.
Yeah, and it's so true. There's so many things you can do virtually, but they can't reposition you.
Mhm.
You know, they just.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we gotta go, woman. So let's talk about what you're up to. What's shaking? What do you got going on? I know we were talking about you have a big workshop coming up
I
in
do.
January.
I do. I am so excited about this. I really am. It's called Winter's Hush. And the thing that I
Mm,
love about yoga, Sandy, and the thing that I love about being on my mat is that it gives me the ability to get quiet enough and still enough to listen. And when I say that, it gives me the chance to listen to my body. You know, what does it need? And it also gives me a chance to listen to that soft whisper from what some people might call the universe, others call it spirit, some might call it nature, I call it God. But God speaks in whispers regarding who we are and the path that we need to be on. The universe has those answers for us, but the trick is to get quiet enough to be able to hear the whispers of the universe. And you know, that's a huge part, I think, of what yoga has done, you know, certainly for me. So the retreat, it is a winter's hush, which is a women's weekend retreat that I'm holding in January. It is January 26, 27, and 28. It is not Super Bowl weekend. It's a
okay.
weekend where, and hopefully the Eagles will be there. Philadelphia Eagles, go Phillies. And it will have some yoga, we'll have some meditation, we'll also have some really lovely singing bowl experiences. Yoga Nidra, if anybody is familiar with that, it's called yogic sleep. And you know, Sandy, after the busy holidays, I think we all need a little bit of R&R, and that's exactly what this retreat is intended to be. It's being
Where's it
held in
located?
Reading, Pennsylvania,
Right.
and it's at Maria Wald Retreat Center or Maria Wald
Ooh,
Renewal Center. And I have personally been to retreats there in the past, and I've always had just an amazing time. I come home with a completely different perspective, and I love it. I love it every time I've gone. Oh, and
okay, so how can they find out more about it? How can they
oh,
sign up?
well, I'm so glad you asked. They can go to heartofbliss.yoga.com/classes, and you'll see, I think I have it pinned up at the top where you can go on and read more about it. Or if you just go onto my homepage, up at the very, very top, it's just Heart of Bliss Yoga. Up at the very top, it says Winter Retreat, and you can just click on
Ooh.
that.
All right, and how else can they find you?
How else can they find me? They can find me on Facebook, Heart of
Okay,
Bliss Yoga. They can
okay,
find me on Instagram. And on Instagram, I'm Angela_Megasko.
okay. That's easy
And
peasy.
LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn too. I think it's Angela Megasko, at Angela Megasko, or whatever that LinkedIn handle is.
And you mentioned you host classes, and do you take individuals too, or is it mostly the classroom
Yes.
setting?
As a matter of fact, for the gentleman who asked about, geez, you know, I've never done yoga. How do I get started? I'm actually working with a gentleman right now who would like to be more proficient in yoga, but he doesn't feel comfortable going into a class that's mostly women and spandex. So he's actually signed up with me to work with me privately. Um,
Cool.
we're doing a 5-class package for him just to get him really comfortable with what to expect in a yoga class so that when the time is right and he, finds a class that he really wants to sign up for, he'll feel comfortable going into that class. So I
I
have
love that.
a class starting. I teach on Wednesday evenings here in Chester County. I have a 5:30 to 6:45 class on Wednesday evenings. And that starts November 1st, and it is yoga for stress and tension. Not that we have any of that before the holidays.
Yeah.
So that's coming up.
That's great. I love that.
And
I love that.
that class series runs for 6 weeks, Sandy. And then we take a little break for the holidays, and then we start another class in January. And then I teach on Zoom. For those
Yeah.
people who want to join me at 10 o'clock on Thursday mornings on Zoom, easy enough to do. Those classes, you can just go in and sign up on my webpage. And that class is also for stress and tension, and that one starts November 2nd.
So there's something for everyone, no matter where you are, Angela.
Where you are.
All right. Well, we got to go. Angela, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you,
on. I really, really
Sandy.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm trying to think. I haven't had somebody about yoga in such a very, very
really?
long time.
Oh, well, then I'm glad.
So this is
I'm
great.
glad that I was able to be here. I really am.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. You're my yin to my yang. All right, people. My hey, I got something to say. Please reach out to Angela. She'll put you in the right direction no matter what. Check out her retreat. I have to say, go Phillies! And until next time, you know what I'm going to say. Toodles. Bye, Angela.